Are you happy with your government? Do you think that maybe the government could do a little bit more, would be a little bit more competent? Fewer stupid people in government, people that could actually explain things to you? Should we maybe have really competent people that just get things done? Or maybe dictatorships better than democracies? Are we kidding ourselves with thinking that we can all live in a democratic society? I mean, we see all the problems. We have, in all Western countries, in all democratic countries, huge social problems. People aren't happy. People are homeless. People are looking at their financial well-being. They're extremists on all sides, and life gets just more difficult. Old values don't hold anymore. Anybody can get elected if they have enough money or some kind of influence. Is it really worth it? I mean, these are very old questions. Basically, maybe are dictatorships better than democracies? Is this something you've asked yourself sometimes? Well, let us begin again with these questions. Are you happy with your democratically elected government? Chances are, of course not. It's the nature of government. Governments are not there to make you happy. They're there to govern. I mean, you may have people getting into government with the best of intentions and trying to really make people happy, trying to really get things done in the best of assumptions. Let's give people a chance. But then you have competing interests. You have no way to make everybody happy. Let's say you have to build a road. A majority of people want the road, need the road, but it has to go through someone's farmland. Maybe sometimes has to go through someone's backyard. So someone has to make a compromise here. And compromises always create some winners, some losers. There are some things where you can't really make both sides happy. And so, no, you will not necessarily always be happy with your government. Now, if you're unhappy, what will you do come next election? Will you re-elect them? If you really don't like them, and you don't like them that much, that even if the other people aren't people you would have voted for previously, and if they're not too distasteful, you'll probably not re-elect them. You have the choice. So if you don't like the government, there's always an alternative. Even if you have a bad alternative, there's going to be an alternative. So you can use your voice and not re-elect them. That isn't really possible in a dictatorship or in a pretend democracy like China or Russia. You know that. You know that elections in China and Russia are predetermined. I grew up in a dictatorship. I know how it goes. You are given the illusion of choice, but you're not going to have one. You may say that in democratic countries, you know, all the parties eventually are the same and they're doing all the same things. Well, that's probably because we still will have the same challenges. Climate change doesn't go away just because the Greens aren't in power anymore. Now, you can pretend not to have to do something about it, but you know, there it is. Homelessness doesn't magically disappear when you have a Republican government in a city instead of a Democratic one, so you still have that issue. So no matter how different the government is that you bring into power, with the same issues still being there, chances are different politicians will have similar answers. So that's how people say that, you know, today all the politicians seem the same. Yeah, it's because we have the same problems, probably. You could say, well, at least in dictatorships, people get things done. But do they? How can you get things done in a dictatorship? I mean, you may be able to push things through. You can say, I want this road here now. And yes, it's easier to build a road in China. But why? Because there are not that many needs to look for environmental regulations, to make people happy, to have a voter base pleased. That all isn't necessary. So if we're wondering whether things are just more efficient in dictatorships, it's because a lot of the considerations for the welfare of people, animals, the natural world, those considerations don't have to be made necessarily. So quickly being able to build infrastructure is not necessarily a sign of quality. Sign of quality is if you can build something without disenfranchising too many people, without destroying the environment too much, and with things lasting. Not necessarily something that is always possible in Western countries. No, I'm from Berlin. I know how long the airport there, but not to build, but oh well. So, why else cannot dictatorships really get things done, especially in the long run? Well, they disrespect their people. A dictatorship assumes, or a pretend democracy, if you prefer that term, they assume that the people shouldn't have a right in a say. They think that people aren't really intelligent enough as a whole. We need educated leaders that know how things are done, and if you have an opinion that goes against that, we shouldn't necessarily listen to everybody. Yeah, but that means that we are not really listening, maybe, to necessary voices. Dictatorships disrespect their people. They teach submission. They teach convergence. They teach not to think critically or creatively. Critical and creative thinking, though, is how economies work. It is how countries work. The only resource that really matters for any country isn't coal, oil, gas. It's people. So if you don't have faith in your people, you will not respect them. You will not let them make the inventions, make the products, make the change necessary. This is why democracies are better than dictatorships. It's not that democratically elected governments like their people. It's not that they necessarily respect them, but they're forced to, through elections, separation of powers, checks and balances, sometimes even federal systems. So a democracy is a system that forces those in power to listen to the people, because the people are the true sovereign. And if you don't have a democracy, governments tend to accumulate more and more power without listening to the people. So as frustrated as you may be with your government right now, and believe you me, I understand that, as unhappy you may be with the democratic process, look at the alternative. There's no alternative. There's no alternative to democracy. There are alternative ways, maybe, of making democracy better. But the only alternative to existing democracy is to make it even more democratic. That's the choice. The choice is not to have some kind of CEO-style person tell you, I know what the best decisions are and I'm going to make them for you. So have some faith, have some trust in democracy. We have problems. We can talk about them. We can fix them. And it's up to all of us to do so. Thank you. This is Erratic Attempts. My name is Dr. Philipp Kneis. Thank you for listening and see you soon.